Hello and welcome. My name is Tony and this video is to continue teaching you in Koine Greek, the Greek of the New Testament. In particular, today we're going to be looking at diphthongs, accents and breathing sounds. This video follows on from the earlier one on the introduction to the alphabet. So if you haven't seen that one yet, you might like to stop this, go back and have a little look at the introduction to the alphabet one first, and then come back to this one. A diphthong is a sound formed by a combination of two vowels into a single syllable. In these, the sound moves from one letter to another. We have some in English. Here are those that we get in Greek. Alpha and iota, I. Alpha and upsilon, U. Epsilon and iota, A. Epsilon and upsilon, U. Omicron and iota, Oi. Omicron and upsilon, U. Eta and upsilon, AU. Epsilon and iota, Hui. And then the three improper diphthongs, which have what's called an iota subscript under them, a small iota under the letter, alpha, eta and omega. With the improper diphthongs, the iota subscript does not change the sound of the letter, but it can change the form of the word that it is in. So let's have a look at how these proper diphthongs sound. You have I as in I'll, ow as in hour, a as in eight, wi as in quit, oi as in oil, oo as in group, u as in feud, and lastly the eta with the upsilon, au, sounds like a oo. Now quite often when you see these diphthongs, they will have a hard breathing, giving them either an H sound, such as hui or hu, or a Y sound. Hard breathings look a little bit like a backwards comma above the letter. On the right here, you see an example of that with the diphthong upsilon iota. To put that in an example word, we have huios. This means son. So it's a common word in the New Testament, such as Son of God. The iota subscript forms what is called an improper diphthong. It will always go on the last letter of a word, and it puts that into the dative. This means that the noun or participle that it's on is referring to the indirect object or a secondary object in the sentence. Don't worry for now about the dative. We'll come back to that when we are covering nouns. Just remember for now that the iota subscript is an important thing to remember, but it doesn't change the sound of the letter. Now, following on from the video that you've probably hopefully already seen about the alphabet, we have some what is called double consonants. They are xi, which acts like an X sound, such as in the English word excited. We have psi, as in the famous Greek god Poseidon. And you have zeta, which has a Z-like sound. The zeta has at the top, shown here in green, what's called an ear coming out the top. and underneath a cedilla, like you may have seen on the letter C in French, which indicates when it's a soft C. Zeta is considered one of the double consonants in Greek. The letter Xi also has an ear and a cedilla. Where you get an S sound in a word, it's called sibilant, serpent-like hiss sound. So we have Xi and Psi here, both with that sibilant sound in the middle. There is also a combination of letters called the gamma nasal. This is where the gamma goes with another consonant but sounds like an N. Two gammas, a gamma and a kappa, a gamma and a xi, or a gamma and a chi. Two gammas together will sound like ng, like in sing. A gamma with a kappa sounds like nk. A gamma with xi sounds like nx. A gamma with a chi sounds again like nk, but spelled differently. The best example of a gamma nasal that's used quite regularly is angelos. It would look like with two gammas you say this word agalos, but because we've got the gamma nasal in play here, it turns the first gamma to an N sound and is pronounced angelos. Now let's just go through that again with some English examples. So gamma and gamma gives an NG-like sound, like in anger. Gamma and kappa gives an NK sound, like in banker. Gamma and xi gives an NX-like sound, like anxious. And gamma chi sound is nk, like in anchor. Note that sometimes in English we say a ch as a k, but sometimes we say it as a ch, as in church. Here I've given an example of the k sound because that is how it sounds in Greek. So gamma chi sounds like the nk in anchor. Breathings are found on all words that begin with a vowel. The rough, or sometimes called a hard breathing, is the one that changes the actual sound. Sometimes a word begins with two vowels, a diphthong, in which case the breathing sound will usually be over the second vowel of the two. For example, hootos. Not pronounced ootos, but hootos, meaning this one. Breathing sounds come at the start of the word. Usually they give an H sound to the letter, but if the first letter is an iota, it gives it a Y sound. Quite often it also has an accent on it, meaning that you put the leaning on that first part of the syllable. But not always, and some accents are later in the word. So this is what hard breathings do to the vowels. And remember, they are only used on vowels. Alpha, instead of a, becomes ha, like hat. Epsilon becomes he, as in help. Eta becomes hey, as in the English word hey. Iota becomes a Y sound, like y, in you. Omicron becomes ho, like hot. Upsilon becomes who, as in the English word who. And omega becomes ho, as in home. As I've said, soft breathings don't change the pronunciation of the vowel or the word, but they can mean something different in terms of the case or the tense, or even change the entire meaning of the word. So don't ignore them, and remember, whenever a word starts with a vowel or a diphthong of two vowels, it will have one or the other. And to finish, a note on punctuation. We get commas in Greek and they perform much like they do in English. There is also a period, a full stop. The question mark as we know it hasn't been invented, and instead it looks like a semicolon. And there's also a half stop where the period is a little bit further up and behaves a bit more like a semicolon. It kind of does what it says, a half stop. Accents have complex rules and meanings, and for learning basic Greek, I'm not going to go into those right now. You will see an acute accent, a grave accent, or a circumflex accent. All I'll say for now is, particularly with acute and grave accents, this simply means that you put emphasis onto that letter. As for the meanings of accents and how they are used, that's advanced Greek, and I have to admit that that's something I myself will have to brush up on before I will be making any videos about that. But certainly don't worry about it for beginners. And as I've said in the corner there, just a reminder about the smooth and rough breathings, also sometimes called soft and hard breathings. Smooth, like a little tadpole facing to the left, and rough or hard, like a little tadpole facing to the right. When I first started out learning, it seemed like it was more important to focus on the pronunciation and on the spelling of a word. So I tended to actually miss out accents and soft breathings in particular. But later on, I realized that they do mean significant things. So don't make my mistake. Be aware of them from the start. That the hard breathing in particular is like another letter. In fact, it's like another two letters because it gives both an H and a Y sound. And the soft breathing needs to be there to tell you that it's not a hard breathing. Every word that begins with a vowel or a diphthong of two vowels has one breathing or the other on it. So remember that that needs to be there. In this example bit of text, you can see that every single word has either an accent or a breathing sound on it. So they are important to learn. Although they weren't actually in the originals, they have become important in learning how to pronounce words and in terms of meaning. This example is from an interlinear Bible, where there is also a transliteration under the literal translation, which will give you an idea of how to pronounce it. The little horizontal line above the vowels show you that that is a long vowel sound. So to give you an example to finish with, I'll show you how some of those breathing sounds and accents work. Kai, anastan, hapan, ton plethos, auton, a gagon auton, epi ton pileton. Exanto de categorein autu legontes, tuton herumen diastrephonta to ethnos hemon, kai kolunta forus. Thank you for coming along and watching this video. Do click like if you like it. Do put some comments in the comments box if you want me to answer any particular questions, or send me an email or something if you have questions about what is in these. Otherwise, I pray that the Lord bless you in your endeavour to learn this language of the Bible, and may He give you a rich reward and blessing as He has for me as you go through that process. Goodbye. God bless.